Hey guys, welcome back to Pro Gun. If you haven't already done so, please click the subscribe button. We'd greatly appreciate that. We do giveaways from time to time, and the only way to be eligible is to be a subscriber, so please subscribe. Today I want to talk to you about defensive pistol training. And I don't want to say that shooting paper targets at the range is a waste of time, but it can be counterproductive. A lot of people go out and buy a firearm and they don't carry every day. They keep it in their house for self-defense. And every once in a while they go to the gun range and they start shooting paper targets. But if you have a gun for personal defense, it's a totally different way of shooting. And I really don't think that shooting paper targets at the range is a good way to develop your skills for personal defense. Number one, depending on what type of defense, if you keep a gun in your home and you use it for personal defense, but you don't carry outside the home, that type of training is totally different also. If you only keep a gun in the house for self-defense, what I would recommend you do is find the longest distance from one end of your home to the other where you may have to shoot, measure it, and when you go to the range, practice shooting at that distance, because that's what you're going to need to defend yourself in your home. If you have a hallway that's 25 feet long, you should be going to the range shooting 25 feet. But the key difference between shooting paper targets just for fun and shooting for personal defense, it basically comes down to, I see people at the range shooting paper targets, and I'm watching them shoot, and in the real world, this doesn't help them at all. Number one, the goal is not to shoot a bullseye, right? The reason we train for center mass is simple. The torso is the biggest part of the human body. Whether it's facing you directly or sideways or on an angle, the torso is still the biggest part of the body. Now, I've seen people get one bullseye in the middle and they get 10 shots all on the outside, and they're all like, oh, look at this. And you know what? I would rather have groups like this anywhere in the target than a bullseye any day. Okay? So if you go by the traditional rules of the FBI, they go by the 3 yards with 3 shots fired within 3 seconds. That's a good start. Most defensive shootings don't happen long range. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't practice further, but what you should do is start off at 3 yards. And if you get a very tight group, then you're not being challenged far enough, then go to 7 yards, then go to 10 yards, and then keep increasing it. Another thing is, when you're shooting at the range, you see your target, okay, and you're staring at your target, and you're doing everything you were taught in your basic pistol class. You're breathing, and you're taking your time, and this is unloaded, by the way. Okay, so you breathe in, you exhale halfway, you pull the trigger, then you exhale. Okay, in a defensive situation, you're not going to have time. That all goes out the window. You're going to have to bang, 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 shoot as rapidly as possible. And you're also not going to be staring at the target for a long period of time. Now, these are just suggestions. I'm not telling you that how you train is right or wrong. I'm just trying to give you suggestions that you may want to use. And I'd like to hear your comments on what you do for your defensive training. One thing I like to do is stand in the ready position, close your eyes for about 5 seconds, then open your eyes and rapidly shoot 4 or 5 shots at your target. What that does is it lets your eyes and your brain and your muscle memory work together under surprise and duress, okay? If you keep staring at your target, you know where the target is. But if you close your eyes and open your eyes and then rapid fire, that kind of simulates a surprise and it gets the adrenaline going. And those are the things that are going to happen in the real world. When you're shooting paper target at the range, people take their first shot. Oh, it's a little high, so they move it down, bam, it's a little low, they move it up, it shoots to the right. Well, you know what? There's no do-overs in self-defense. When your life depends on it, there's no do-overs. You don't get to readjust and compensate. So you should be able to do is you should be able to draw your firearm and rapidly shoot 4 or 5 shots, and you should get them in about a 3-inch group, and then keep progressively moving back until you can consistently get a constant group on your target. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Stay there. There's no point in going further and further away and frustrating yourself. And at 3 yards, you should be able to do that, no problem. Then you go to 5 yards, then 7, then maybe 10 yards. But you'll also see people at the range shooting, 50 feet away. In the real world, in the defensive situation, nobody's ever gotten robbed or mugged or raped at 50 feet away. Another technique I like to use when I'm at the range is I'll take my magazine, I'll put 4 or 5 live rounds in, then I'll put a dummy round in, then I'll put more live rounds in. And what that does is you'll shoot bang, 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 click. And it gives you the opportunity to do the tap and rack, okay, that may happen in a real world situation. I don't ever see anybody at the range doing that. And the problem with just shooting paper targets at the range is it's a controlled environment that you're never going to experience if your life depends on it in a defensive situation. Another thing is when you shoot defensively, okay, after you're done shooting your threat, you should be scanning left and right a couple times before holstering your firearm. You never see anybody do that at the range. They shoot their paper targets all day long. They never look to the left and right. In defensive situations, you neutralize your target. You should be scanning left and right, making sure there aren't any threats there before you holster your firearm. So there's a lot of techniques that you can use for defensive shooting. And I'm not saying that target shooting at the range is a waste of time, but if you are going to train for defensive shooting in a real world situation, you're going to be shooting totally different. You may draw your firearm and just point and shoot, or just look at the front sight. You're not going to have the luxury of concentrating too much on the sight alignment and the sight picture that you do at the gun range when you're shooting paper, and you're not going to be able to do the breathing and all of that stuff. I'd really like to know your thoughts on what techniques you guys use. Another thing to keep in mind is that you only shoot to stop the threat. You don't shoot to kill. Okay? So on an average, based on the FBI statistics, it takes 2 to 3 shots. So you should be firing 2 to 3 shots rapidly every time you shoot. And then again, like I said, move back and progress until you get further and further away. Because if you can't do that up close, you're not going to do it far away. And again, if you're only using a firearm in your home for self-defense, there's other things you can do as well. You can, train with low light, and again, measure your hallway or your furthest distance. If you're never going to carry outside your home, you damn well better know what the distance in your house that you're going to need to know how to shoot on. Another important point I want to make is the best training that you can do doesn't even involve shooting live ammo. It's dry fire training. Whether you're using the Mantis Laser Academy or a laser cartridge or dummy caps or nothing, okay? When you dry fire train, that is the best quality training you can get. When you go to the range and you shoot paper, all you're doing is validating that the training that you've done at home, dry fire training, is working. Other than that, I think dry fire training is very important, and it's probably more important than shooting paper at the range because it allows you to do things you can't do at the range. Some gun ranges don't allow you to draw your firearm from the holster and shoot. Some of them don't allow you to move. When you train at home, you can move laterally. You can move backwards. You can shoot at different angles. You need to be able to do those things. Another thing I noticed at the range is Everybody shoots with their strong hand all the time. You should be alternating between your strong and weak hand. What if you get shot, or you break your arm, or you become immobilized, or if you have a disability, even though you may be right-handed, you may be forced to shoot with your left. Every time I dry fire train, I spend just as many reps doing my strong side as I do with my weak side. I'm left-handed, so I spend just as much time with my right as I do with my left. And you should be able to do those, you do the 3 yards, 3 shots, you should be able to do the same thing with your left and right hand. It's very important you do that. Like I said, when I see people at the range, I never see them switching hands. I never see them scanning for threats. They have a totally different mindset. Their mindset is, well, let's go to the range and shoot some paper targets, and I want to have a target I could brag about to my friends and hang up on my refrigerator. I don't give a rat's ass how pretty it looks. All I know is I want my groups like this. I could care less about whether it's a bullseye. I mean, torso is a big part of the body, right? Whether you shoot them here or here or here, it doesn't really matter. No, it's not going to hurt more because you got a bullseye as opposed to down here, as long as your grouping is consistent. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And also, when you shoot defensively, what I recommend you do is just use paper plates, because people go to the gun range, they're so hung up on, oh, how did I score? Ah, damn it, I scored a 7 or 8 or a 9 or a 10. You shouldn't really worry about scoring points. The whole idea is center mass, okay? Center mass is a huge area. If you're aiming at a logo on somebody's shirt, odds are you're still going to hit them somewhere in center mass, okay? So if you use a paper plate, you don't get hung up on where the bullseye is and where the 7, the 8, the 9 is. All you're worried about is taking your shot as quickly as you can and getting your grouping anywhere in that paper target. And if you can do that consistently, then you'll have no problem defending yourself. And if you can't, you need to practice, because if you can't shoot consistent groups at any distance and you're carrying a firearm, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with a firearm. You can miss and shoot somebody else. Again, the people that only have a gun in their home for self-defense and never carry probably don't even go to the range often. Going to the range once or twice a year isn't going to cut it. And that's why I recommend dry fire. If you don't carry outside of your house, you should still be dry fire training at least 2 to 3 days a week. I dry fire train at least 5 days a week inside the house. And if I can't make it to the range, I use like my Mantis Laser Academy. When I go to the range, I can validate my results on the paper targets, but there's no excuse that I don't have ammo, I can't train, I can't get to the range. That's not an excuse. If you want to be able to defend yourself and your family, you have to be able to shoot consistently, and you have to be accurate, and the only way to do that is practice, practice, practice. Again, train on both sides, left, right, try your distances, and you'll be successful. I'd really like to know your thoughts and what techniques you guys use, so please feel free to leave your comments. Thanks for watching.